Should the government have had the power to shut down businesses in the name of public safety? I say no. And the reason I say no is because I think there's two reasons why we shouldn't hand over the power to the federal government on this matter. The first being, if you give government the power to shut down businesses in the name of safety, well, they can just create a public health crisis whenever they feel it's necessary, and they can shut out their political opposition by crushing their financial income. And you might say, Fox, that's a little far-fetched. We live in America. And while that is true, take a look at what happened this past year of 2020. You had tons of small businesses forced to shut their doors in the name of a public emergency. And like I said, you might believe that the public emergency, it really called for the government to shut down those businesses, but handing over the power, while it might have good intentions at first, there are unintended consequences down the road. And the second reason why I think government should not have the power to shut down businesses, even if there is a global emergency, as they call it, is it really comes down to a constitutional matter. You see, I believe that people should always have the freedom to transact with one another, especially when it's voluntary. So, what I do think is that people should have at least had the option to keep their business open if they chose to do so, and if others said, hey, there's too much unknown going around right now, I don't have enough information regarding the virus, I'm gonna voluntarily shut my doors until I feel it's, safe to come out, or at least to where I feel comfortable operating my business. And I want to show you what the unintended consequences were from being shut down. Now, if this is your first video with me, every now and then I make a note that I am from New Jersey, so that's why some of the news is always centered around the tri-state area, at least around myself. But this article shows what the unintended consequences were from forcing all small businesses to shut their doors. So the article reads, almost 1/3 of all small businesses in New Jersey have closed. I love how it says have closed, but just have closed. And in this article, it goes on to say, because of the shutdown, you have basically almost 1/3 of small businesses in New Jersey have closed down in 2020. This is according to the Star Ledger. And as someone says, it's really bad. And without federal dollars coming into New Jersey, the Main Street stores and other establishments are not going to make it through the winter. Now, I'm very much of a free market sort of, I want people to have individual responsibility, and I don't want others to be reliant on the government. So bailouts is going to be something for another video, but this right here kind of displays my point that while maybe at first we all felt good about the decision of forcing people to shut their businesses because we didn't want to have an overload, with the hospitals and things like that, now we really have to deal with those consequences from forcing them to shut, which is there's a ton of businesses that are never going to reopen. And there's people that operated within those businesses. Some small businesses might only have, 1 or 2 people. Other might have anywhere from, say, 6, 10, 15 people, right? And it could go on because I know there's a pretty broad definition of what a small business is. And the biggest point that I want to make is that if you force people to shut their businesses, well, chances are they're not going to be able to make it because they don't have the big profits that all the corporations have, right? And all the chain stores, the franchises. So it's really something that's worth noting because say there's ever an event where we have to do some form of, or consider some form of a shutdown again, hopefully this kind of opens your eyes up to saying, hey, we might not want to do that because of what it'll cause down the road. And I do want to make a note about the particular movement, and they're within the Democratic Party, and they like to always shout, my body, my choice. My question is, where were you when all the business owners in various states were trying to march in the streets and say, let me open my business? Where were you? You see, I really think you could have maybe potentially brought a little more credibility to yourself, maybe even to your movement, if you actually stepped outside of the political box, let's say, and you didn't clench on to, well, everyone that I agree with politically is saying the other thing, so I can't stray away from them. I really think you could have made some strides with what it is that you're trying to accomplish, but Really, it showed me that all you care about is saying that when it's for yourself. Doesn't apply to others. Something just worth noting. And the last thing I wanted to share with you today was here's an article titled How Many Small Businesses Are in the US? And while it does say that it was updated September 9th, I do think it's going to take a little bit of time for these numbers to change because I don't think we truly know the after effects of the whole shutdown. But there were two particular points that I wanted to share with you. So the first one being, or the question, how many small businesses are there in the US? So this article states that there's over 30 million small businesses, which comprise a whopping 99.9% of all United States businesses. That's a ton. And you really have to think about, is it worth forcing all those businesses to close in the name of public safety? Well, you might still not be convinced yet, but here's the next question. How many people do small businesses employ in the US? And I think this is at least before the shutdown. So like I said, it might take months or even years until we truly know, the real numbers as to how many people are employed from small businesses. But this states that small businesses employ 58.9 million people, making up 47.5% of the country's total employee workforce. So even though it's not the majority, that's pretty close to being 50-50 in terms of small businesses and corporations and things like that. So when you force all those small businesses to close, where do people have to shop now? That's another point that I wanted to make, because if you shut down all these small businesses, where do people have to shop now? They have to go to the big corporations, right? The big companies. And I hear a lot of people now that they were shouting at the top of their lungs saying everyone has to shut down, just stay inside, 15 days to slow the spread, things like that. Those are the same people now complaining that big companies, corporations, and billionaires profited from the shutdown. Well, yeah, no duh. Did you not see it coming? And maybe they really didn't see it coming. But hopefully now you can kind of look back and say, okay, I got a little ahead of myself, right? Maybe I reacted a little too emotionally to the situation that was going on, and we overreached just a little too much. So where can we go from here? Because we certainly can't change the past. But one thing that we can do is we can discuss different ideas and different policies that maybe we can abide by going forward in the event there's ever a situation like this ever again. At the very least, I don't want to see the government force businesses to shut their doors. I really do think that people should have the individual freedom, the liberty to stay open if they choose to do so, whether there's a virus going around or not. But at the end of the day, these are just my thoughts, and I want to know what yours are. Seriously, on this particular topic, it's something that I really do want to engage in a conversation with someone, even if they do disagree with me. I'm all for sharing ideas. But as always, I appreciate you checking out the channel, and I hope that I'll see you again sometime soon.